Hi there, Salim Ismail here. I'm the chief instigator of the OpenExO community, where over 7,000 passionate, driven people are transforming the world for a better future. We want to give you an opportunity to see a bright future, a Star Trek future compared to, say, a Mad Max future that we actually have ahead of ourselves. And to really celebrate that, we want you to take a few hours out of your day and look at the decade ahead with a lens of possibility and purpose and activation. For this reason, we're going to close out 2020 by hosting ExO World, the decade of the ExO, a global online conversation about the future and how we celebrate in a world of abundance. A conversation about how every organization, nonprofit, governmental department in the world can leverage new technologies, new organizational techniques to create the future that we need and we deserve. We want to give you the tools to transform your life, your organization, the institutions, and the world that we live in. We'll see you on the 17th.
Hello, folks, and welcome to OpenExO Live. Really great to be with you today. Today, we are live not only on social media, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, but we are also live in the decade of the ExO event, live on the main stage there. And it's a pretty fitting person to have on OpenExO Live when we are live on the main stage, and that is Lars from Copenhagen. And we'll have Lars up on the stage soon. But I just wanted to show you, we also have some amazing people next year who will be live on OpenExO Live. And before we see Lars, we always start our OpenExO Live by sharing some thoughts from the community. And so we'll start with this first comment from Crystal, who just said, I am so honored to have the opportunity to work closely with Lars. Lars is so amazing. He has a sweetheart and is so dedicated to empowering others. Lars is one of the very important people that helped me jump into this exponential learning curve with an exponential mindset and innovation methodologies. I am so thankful for his life, for giving me an opportunity to work and share the same journey with Lars and the Planet Pilots team on creating a healthy planet managed by empowered kids. Next, we have from Henrik, who's also based in Denmark. Lars is one of the most brilliant coaches and facilitators I have ever met. Not only does he inspire crowds of people, he lives the ExO life very literally. No idea, vision, or transformation project is too big for Lars, and his Educate for Life initiative is a key example of this mindset. He is a constant challenger of the status quo and an enabler of the future and an inspiration to all. Next, we have from Patrick. It has been a pleasure knowing and working on and off with Lars over the last 4 years. He is always full of energy and positivity, and I am truly impressed with his passion and commitment to reinvent education, to make our kids fit for the future and inspire them to create a better world for all of us. We then have next from Diana, grit, capability, solid know-how, and expertise. They all define Lars and his work. In my perspective, Lars is both a doer and a visionary, both a good leader and a team member, both an exquisite professional and a good companion for an informal talk. Lars convinced me to join the OpenExO community through his specific way of explaining and putting things into perspective. I have high consideration for Lars, and I am looking forward to crossing paths again in future projects. We also have from Anne Riley, Lars is one of those people you meet and think, I want to get to know this person better. I greatly admire Lars as he lives his MTP, resourcefulness for breakthroughs in everyone. every day and in every interaction. He brings his whole self to each of his many projects, all with the aim of creating a better world. I always enjoy working on projects with Lars, and I know it will be an inspirational and disruptive journey with a lot of laughs as well. And then lastly, we have from Karina. I consider Lars one of the fathers of the EXO movement. I remember when I met him for the first time in Florida, and he said, I want to shake hands and say hi to everybody here. I thought he was not going to accomplish it, but he did. I was one of them, and I'm very proud to have been part of Lars's moonshots, ideas, new ventures, and his unique vision, kindness, and generosity to share his knowledge with everybody. Thank you, Lars. And I can tell you very much that there were more, and I had to just cut them down because Lars has really had a massive impact on so many people within the OpenExO community. So Lars, welcome. I hope that fills up your heart. How are you doing in Copenhagen tonight?
Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you, Crystal and Henrik and Patrick and Diana and Anne for remembering my MTP, and to Karina and to all of you. I can tell you this is a dark evening, rainy in Copenhagen, but the sun just started to shine on me here, thanks to you guys, and thanks to the team running the ExO World event. Like you are, Kevin, just stepping out of it, or maybe actually I'm still in it. So thank you, all of you, for being here and for having me here.
Perfect. So Lars, the first thing we always ask people is just, how did you come across the OpenExO community? What is the story there? So let's start with that. If you can share how you joined the OpenExO community.
Cool. It's actually a story I've been thinking about quite many times. It's about 5 years since I joined. I came across Salim's book. I think that's probably the beginning of most of our stories and how we got into it. But I hadn't joined yet at that point. I'm an electronics engineer and tech entrepreneur, and I was doing fintechs in China and coaching businesses in India, and I had good product market fits and all that, but I needed to figure out how to scale this stuff. And actually, I came across Salim's book, and it's not just Salim, obviously, and Peter and Yuri and all the contributors to the book. But the first thing that struck me in the book was the clear description of the immune system in organizations that attack you when you try something disruptive. I was trying to do something disruptive, and I had different corporate jobs, great jobs. I learned a ton, but also got attacked when I tried something disruptive. So I wanted to read the book. I read the book. I kind of found the 11 ExO attributes to be a super helpful tool, and also a mental framework, if you like, how we should probably look at the world. So I applied it on my startups. They scaled, and that was a nice ending to that story. I wrote about this on LinkedIn. I remember that I built exponential organizations for the benefit of humanity. I think that was the tagline. I still carry that with me, even though I'm not using it as much. But I actually built more EXOs now than I have ever done before. And actually, it was a LinkedIn algorithm that I think made me pop up when Shea Fehrenbach and Francisco Palau, two of the original founders of this amazing movement that we have here, they found me through LinkedIn. They were preparing to run the first 10-week EXO sprint ever. It was 12 weeks at the time, but that's a detail. And they found me through LinkedIn and said, Lars, you work in China. You're already doing it. Do you want to be part of our first sprint? And which I think was supposed to take place in China. That didn't materialize, but then we did a sprint in Mexico instead. So I was on at the moment I got that invitation to join as a coach in that first sprint team. So that's kind of very long story, a little shorter.
So I mean, so it's been quite a lot of time, of course, and you've worked on a lot of ExO initiatives, a lot of sprints around the world. Can you just give a sense of what some of those outcomes have been that have really inspired you?
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, there has been many. I had the privilege of overseeing a lot of ExO sprints on the ExO Works. After the first couple of sprints, I joined ExO Works in the core team, and later I joined OpenExO in training and certification. And later I've been building various ExOs. So I've seen a lot of initiatives. We have seen initiatives coming out of sprints we did 2, 3, 4 years ago that are now in the market as separate legal entities and new ExOs with large corporates and startups that have been launching. And that's the best thing, right? That means there's an impact, also an impact that we are hoping and to some extent expecting, and it did materialize. It's always, however, the personal transformation stories from people that have been through this with us, and together we have been doing this. And when they call you several years later to tell what happened since then and how this changed their lives, that's the best part of it, honestly. And I have many of those stories, but I might start getting a bit red-eyed if I tell them now.
No, absolutely. And Lars, I mean, tell me if I've got the story right, but maybe I've got it completely wrong. Is that, I mean, you participate. I think you head coached on the Bitdefender sprint, and I'm sure it was around that time that there was a lot happening with your group around Educate for Life. For some reason in my head, that all happened at the same time. But maybe I'm completely wrong. But tell us a little bit about Educate for Life and what you're trying to achieve there.
Well, you're asking me to talk about my baby, so you got to stop me at some point here, Kevin. But let me get started now that you're inviting me. So, as a matter of fact, part of the story is 10 years ago when I first became a dad. Then you start to focus on the school system, the education system, which you had probably forgotten about in your busy life, building businesses and working in fantastic jobs. But I needed to, again, focus on the education system to kind of help my kids get on that educational journey that most of us have been on for 12, 15 years, right? So looking at schools and all that, and I really got annoyed and frustrated when I saw what I saw. A lot of amazing people dedicated fully to their job inside and outside of the system, everybody doing their best, but systems and structures that worked 40, 50 years ago to the benefit of our planet. But that's just not what we need in the 21st century. That's anyway my viewpoint. And so I talked about it in our OpenExO community, that I as a dad needs to launch something to create new offerings for my own kids who want to have a chat about that. And a lot of you folks out there said, hey, we want to do it. And to be very honest, I didn't take action immediately, right? And I'm ashamed about that today, but a lot of community friends chased me and they didn't stop. And they said, what is happening here? This is too important to let go. And if we are not taking action, either it's never happening or maybe it's somebody else doing it and driving this in a direction we don't want to see. So I kind of brought together a group, and I took the best tool I know in my toolbox and ExO Sprint and said, hey guys, let's go through a sprint together. And we did. And we had to come up with a name related to lifelong learning, because that's one of the paradigms that I find important. And so Educate for Life became the name, and we needed a website, and we needed a community platform, all that stuff, because we wanted to focus on the future of education and design that in the way we wanted it to be. But using everything we know in terms of our ExO frameworks, methodologies, and each other. And you know, I can talk later about this is a strong call to action to everybody listening to start doing it. Actually start teams, bring teams together and sub-communities to focus on certain MTPs and certain grand challenges that you want to solve. And this is the community to do it in. And Educate for Life is the proof of that.
I mean, absolutely. And that impetus of, man, my kids are pretty much learning exactly the same way I did. Yep. It actually, I'm currently in Barbados, luckily, and I met someone because of the pandemic. Their child came home, and the book that they were using was identical to the one they'd used 25 years earlier. You know, I don't know what it was teaching, but it's quite crazy that fact is actually true. And so, Lars, with Educate for Life, of course, with a sprint, initiatives come out of that sprint. I know one of those initiatives is Planet Pilots, and really exciting initiative. Free reign again. Tell us about. I don't know what this would be. A grandchild.
Yes, they are kind of grandchildren, but now we fortunately have many parents too, and aunts and cousins and everybody to support. You know, the community and crowd is one of the most important ExO attributes, in my opinion. If you don't have that when you launch something, you have made a big mistake, right? You got to put the community in place first. And that's what we did, and that's why a lot of different autonomous teams are self-forming and actually going through a sprint first to get to know each other, to align on purpose, mission, vision, these things, and see that everybody has the same fire in the belly to actually make this happen. And we have seen, well, one of my very good friends, and Charlotte Vida, who is a very active member also of the OpenExO community. She ran the Morocco session earlier today with great outcome, I heard. She moved to Morocco, not, I believe, because of Educate for Life, but she did actually take her passion project through our 2019 sprint, which was to empower women in Morocco, help them to learn about entrepreneurship, give them literacy skills if they need that, and help them get a better life, which many need pretty much everywhere in the world. And Charlotte is also one of those that are doing things and combining a very strong passion and purpose with the ability to do things. And that work will continue. So we have seen teams work on university projects. We have actually had universities also sending teams to the sprint, which has been great to fund the activities and the sprints. We have seen parents coming together to create initiatives for their kids. We see people interested in leadership development and figuring out what's the future of that. How should we train leaders for the future? Well, we're doing that with Planet Pilots already, but for those of us who are too old for Planet Pilots now, if that can happen, then what other initiatives could you put in place to help leadership training, for example, or a variety of other initiatives that we are seeing happening?
Absolutely. So, I mean, Lars, essentially, I would say, you know, you with this initiative are pretty much at like the forefront of a sort of like virtual community movement, right? Yeah. And I know that you've been writing a paper around that. Can you shed some light on that for folks who are watching? I mean, I agree with you. Community and crowd, I think, is one of the most important attributes. But yeah, could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, actually, I have Charlotte to thank really for this work that has been done. After the 2019 sprint, where Charlotte came through, and she has a background amongst other interesting things, from running the Lego Play Futures virtual community globally. And she got excited about the way we operated. And I said she knows a PhD or PhD student at the time, I believe, who were interested in actually studying this from a research perspective. And so they did. Lucine and Charlotte, they joined forces and has been working on this paper since March 2019, and just a few weeks ago presented at the Academy of Management's annual conference. This paper was accepted and presented, and we want to publish it. And obviously we want to share it here in the OpenExO community, because there are some key lessons that we now saw black on white in this paper that came out of interviews of 14 of our sprint participants. Charlotte and Lucine were interviewing our participants and actually analyzed everything that came out of the interviews, and found out a few of the conclusions. First, the massive transformative purpose is really crucial to create a community anyway, where people are motivated to keep contributing, right? We have ourselves here in OpenExO a strong MTP that we all connect with. That's part of why we are here and why we get up 6 in the morning, if not before, every single day to do what we are each doing. So the MTP plays a significant role in community building, the leader as well of the community. That's where I got red-eyed, so I'm not going into that. You need somebody who's on fire to kind of keep going and keep inspiring people, and now we have a lot of those in our community. That's amazing. Without that, nothing would happen. And actually, there was a graphic. I want to share that afterwards in some way that shows kind of a process from you are approaching a community from the outside with your talents, your interest, and your willingness to contribute. Then you enter the community. And then what happens then, really? And this is what the paper studies, and super interesting. Wow. So we want to share that. I need to ask Lucine and Charlotte how and when we best do that.
No, absolutely. That'll really be amazing to see. And what we are really starting to see is a lot more academic interest actually in ExO. And whilst perhaps some folks, I mean, Salim might say, "Oh, academic, that's the one industry that has the biggest immune system." They do take a little bit longer, but it's one thing that's going to allow us to move ExO a lot more mainstream, which is what we require to transform the world, right?
Well, that's a supporting pillar. I think we cannot and should not live without. That a lot of us are running at full speed, maybe in different directions. We also need somebody to look at us from the outside, the external perspective, and document what they see. Somebody who's maybe not yet as emotional connected to what we do in our community, so they can bring their research perspective in and document properly. We need that, and I'm seeing that happening as well. We are doing something similar, starting a similar journey with Planet Pilots, by the way, in cooperation with the university. I look forward to see the next steps around that also.
Absolutely, it'll be very interesting to see what the outcomes are in terms of the kids who participate. And could you just give a little bit of insight into what it is the kids actually do and how some of those outcomes have been?
Yeah. Well, again, you got to stop me at some point, Kevin. This is the grandkid now, but with many parents, amazing parents, and more actually coming to support. So actually, this story kind of begins with our 2020 Educate for Life sprint, and that ended in March when the COVID kind of lockdown really kicked in many countries, including here in Denmark, where I'm sitting, and we realized that because what we are doing is really connecting the kids online, so they can get exposed to other cultures. They can whatever they want to do with those new friends online, play, study, work, whatever they want to do, they are empowered to do that. All we need to do is connect them. So, but now we have then spent some time studying empowerment, which is one of the pillars, and Mark Prensky, one of our board members and a published author and an amazing person to also bring in here next time, maybe in ExO World. He speaks and writes about empowerment and why that is probably the pillar that should replace education. That we have known for a couple of 100 years now, and that many of us really want to change. So we wanted to study empowerment. So that's one of the first principles. And once the kids are empowered, it's really up to them what they are doing with it. And we as adults are programmed to try to control and give them better ideas, and we fail constantly on that. So we are constantly pulling out of the sessions and just let the pilots do what they do best, which is to pilot our planet into a better future. And I've been running, I've been having a lot of fun running a Find Your Personal Massive Transformative Purpose workshop for since I started in this community here all over the world. Now I wanted to create one for kids as well. And I had no idea how to do it. Honestly, that was a challenge, but I loved the challenge. But when we did, I had 6-7-year-olds saying, I like the UN SDG number 3, 6, 9, and 11. And I was like, whoa, hang on, I'm not qualified to be in this Zoom room. But they do. And one of our amazing pilots from New Zealand said, I want to be an author. I want to write. That's what I love doing. That's what I'm good at. And just recently, actually, she published her first book. So we kind of had to create the Planet Pilots Publishing House, which we have now created, and she's published on Amazon. And all this took like 30 days, I think, including reviewing the book and publishing. Maybe inspiration for the next ExO book, who knows?
Wow, that's amazing, Lars. And so the age of the kids that Planet Pilots is generally working with?
We are targeting 8 to 15-year-olds.
Okay, wow.
We sometimes have older and sometimes younger. When younger, their focus is entirely on play very often. There's no problem in that, but it's hard to have them in a very constructive working session. And the 12-year-olds get a little bit annoyed. And the 18-year-olds are happy to be mentors, but they don't want to be in that cohort themselves. They're obviously grown up. So that's the age bracket.
Awesome. That's really great. I mean, Lars, I would love to speak to you for longer. We are at about time. So what would you like to share with everybody? I mean, it's the end of a year. It's the start, we believe, of an amazing decade. And I know you believe it too. You're saying, actually, no, we're already there. What do you want to share with everyone as we end off today?
Yeah, we are definitely not there, right? We're doing it. We we're doing a lot, but I think, and I've heard it a lot of times today at the ExO World Conference, that we need to do more. And I really also think that is an important takeaway today from everything that's going on here. And because if we don't do it, I doubt others will. We are the ones that believe the strongest in a lot of the things that we are talking about here, I think. And that means we need to be those entrepreneurs that take the risk of launching something new, and obviously failing, and then at some point succeeding. That's the journey to get there. And we need to do that. We need to be the ones creating those MTPs, I think, even starting there, attracting people like I've done in the future of education space, but we need to do that in every single space you can mention in the next hour if you try, and build communities around it, and primarily from our OpenExO community, and that will attract the right people who are as passionate about this MTP as we are. And then you need to start facilitating and encourage leadership and supporting in different ways, and then you start to see action happening. And that is how I think we are moving from here on into the decade of the ExO, and I look very much forward to that. There's a lot of challenges, absolutely, this year for everybody, but what's the alternative to believing that we can create a better world? I don't like the alternative. I think there's only one way that's forward. So let's do it.
Awesome, Lars. It's always amazing chatting to you. Always inspiring speaking to you. Hopefully, our paths will cross also in person again on a less windy day in Copenhagen. But thanks so much. I hope you have a fantastic festive season, and we'll see you very soon.
You will, definitely. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lars. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was Lars. Amazing to chat to him and to end off the year of OpenExO live with Lars. So thank you, everybody, for joining. We won't be here next week. We will be taking a few weeks break, and looking forward to seeing you in the new year.